Christmas Eve, 1945. The air was filled with the festive spirit, and the Sodder family home in Fayetteville, West Virginia was no exception. The house was adorned with twinkling lights, and the aroma of freshly baked cookies wafted through the air. George and Jenny Sodder, along with their 10 children, were eagerly preparing for a night of celebration. Little did they know this night would end in tragedy and mystery that would haunt them forever. A fire consumes the Sodder family home in West Virginia. The flames erupted suddenly, engulfing the house in a matter of minutes. The family awoke to the smell of smoke and the sound of crackling wood. Panic set in as they realized the severity of the situation. 5 children vanished without a trace. Despite the frantic efforts of George and Jenny to save all their children, only 4 managed to escape the inferno. The remaining 5, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny and Betty, were nowhere to be found. No bodies, no bones, just gone. The fire burned for hours, reducing the house to ashes. When the flames finally died down, the search for the missing children began. But to everyone's shock, there were no remains to be found, not a single bone or fragment of clothing. It was as if the children had vanished into thin air. But what if I told you the fire was only the beginning? The mystery deepened as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months. The Sodder family was left with more questions than answers. Tonight we uncover one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in American history: the disappearance of the Sodder children. This case has baffled investigators, intrigued conspiracy theorists, and left a family in perpetual grief. It was Christmas Eve, 1945. The Sodder family, George, Jenny, and their 10 children, were preparing for a night of celebration. The children were excited, eagerly anticipating the gifts and festivities that awaited them the next morning. The Sodder family, George, Jenny, and their 10 children, were preparing for a night of celebration. The house was filled with laughter and joy as the children played around the Christmas tree, their faces glowing with happiness. But just past midnight, disaster struck. The peaceful night was shattered by the sudden outbreak of fire. The family was jolted awake, their hearts pounding with fear. A fire broke out in their home. The flames spread rapidly, consuming everything in their path. The family had only moments to react. George and Jenny rushed to save their children. They managed to get 4 of them out, but the remaining 5 were trapped inside. George tried to re-enter the house, but the flames were too intense. But when the flames settled, 5 of them were missing. The family was devastated. They couldn't understand how the children could have disappeared without a trace. No remains, no ashes, nothing. The search for the missing children yielded no results. The investigators were baffled. How could a fire so intense leave no trace of the children? Investigators claimed the fire was an accident. They concluded that faulty wiring was to blame, but the Sodder family wasn't convinced. But George and Jenny knew something wasn't right. They couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Their suspicions were soon confirmed. And soon, strange clues began to emerge. The more they investigated, the more they realized that the fire might not have been an accident after all. The phone lines had been cut before the fire started. This was the first clue that something was amiss. Who would cut the phone lines and why? The family's ladder was missing, making escape impossible. The ladder, which was always kept in the same spot, had mysteriously vanished. Without it, George couldn't reach the upper floors to save his children. The fire department arrived 7 hours late. By the time they got there, it was too late. The house was already reduced to ashes. Why did it take them so long to respond? And then, the biggest question of all, the one that haunted the Sodder family and baffled investigators: why were there no bones in the ashes? Even in the most intense fires, human bones don't completely burn away. There should have been some remains. Even in extreme fires, human bones don't completely burn away. Experts confirmed that it was highly unlikely for the fire to have completely incinerated the children's bodies, and yet there was nothing left. Then came the witnesses. People started coming forward with strange stories and sightings. People claimed they had seen the missing Sodder children alive. These sightings were reported in various places, far from the Sodder home. A waitress in Charleston reported seeing the children with two strange men. She described them as looking nervous and out of place. A hotel worker recalled a woman with 5 kids who refused to talk about them. Were they abducted? The woman seemed anxious and kept the children away from prying eyes. Then decades later, a chilling letter arrived. It was addressed to Jenny Sodder and contained a photograph. It had a photograph of a young man. The resemblance to Louis Sodder was uncanny. On the back it read, "Louis Sodder is alive. Love, Frankie." The message was cryptic and raised more questions than answers. Was this one of the missing children? The family was torn between hope and skepticism. Was it a cruel hoax? Some believed it was a cruel joke played by someone with a twisted sense of humor, or was it the truth? Could Louis really be alive, living under a different identity? To this day, no one knows for sure. The case remains open and the mystery unsolved. Over the years, theories have flooded the case, each one more intriguing and bizarre than the last. Some believe the children were kidnapped by the mafia. George Sodder had been vocal about his opposition to Mussolini, and some think this might have made him enemies. Others say they were taken for human trafficking. The 1940s saw a rise in such activities, and the children could have been victims. Some even claim they were raised under new identities, adopted by families who had no idea of their true origins, and yet the truth remains hidden. Despite numerous investigations and countless theories, the fate of the Sodder children remains a mystery. The case was never solved. The Sodder family never gave up hope, but they never found their missing children. No bodies were ever found. The family held memorials, but without closure. Their grief was endless, and no one ever saw the Sodder children again. Their faces, once full of life, now only exist in fading photographs. What really happened that night? The question lingers, haunting those who hear the story. Were they victims of a sinister plot? Was there a dark force at play, orchestrating their disappearance? Or did they escape a fate worse than fire? Did they manage to flee, only to face another unknown danger? One thing is for sure. The Sodder mystery still haunts the world today. It remains one of the most perplexing and heartbreaking cases in history. What do you think happened to the Sodder children? We want to hear your theories and thoughts. Let us know in the comments below. Your insights might shed new light on this enduring mystery. And if you love real-life horror mysteries, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Stay tuned for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Because the truth is always stranger than fiction. Until next time, keep questioning, keep searching, and never stop seeking the truth.